All right, today we're going to tackle one of life's biggest, and let's be honest, most feared subjects, death. But instead of looking at it through a lens of anxiety, we're going to uncover a completely different perspective, one that's rooted in a sense of deep peace and understanding, all guided by the incredible wisdom of Eckhart Tolle.
So let me just ask you this straight up. Is death really the most terrible thing in the world? I mean, our culture, our movies, our stories, they all kind of paint it as the ultimate tragedy, right? The worst possible thing. But what if that's not true? What if that entire way of thinking is actually based on a huge misunderstanding?
So here's how we're going to break this down. First, we'll look at what life's true opposite is. Then, we'll dig into the real source of our fear, what's actually going on when we feel that anxiety. After that, we'll get practical and talk about small deaths, and then discover the part of us that is actually timeless. And finally, we'll wrap it all up with this profound idea of dying before you die.
Okay, let's dive in. Our journey has to start by fixing this one single assumption we all make, an assumption that shapes our entire view of existence. It sounds simple, but trust me, this little shift changes everything.
You see, we're taught to think of life and death as these two opposing forces, like they're enemies at war. But that's where we get it wrong. The true opposite of death isn't life at all, it's birth. Think about it. Birth and death are just two ends of the same stick, the two poles of one single continuous life process.
Imagine you're walking through a forest. You look down and you see fallen logs, decaying leaves, all these things we label as death. But look closer. That decay is actually fueling new life, right? It's teeming with microorganisms, feeding the soil so new trees can sprout. It's not an end, it's just a transformation, a constant metamorphosis of life itself.
And this leads us to this massive realization. Life itself has no opposite. Life just is. It's eternal. It's a continuous, unfolding process. So what we call death isn't the end of life, it's just a change in its form.
Okay, but wait a minute. If life is eternal and death is just a transformation, then why are we so terrified of it? Why is that fear so deep inside all of us? Where does that feeling of terror really come from? Well, the culprit, if you want to call it that, is something called the ego. Now, we're not talking about being arrogant or having a big head. In this context, the ego is simply our deep-seated identification with form. It's the belief that the sense of I comes from all these temporary things.
And what are these forms? Well, it's everything you think makes you you. It's your name, it's your body, it's the stuff you own. It's the story you tell about your past, your achievements, your failures, it's even your reputation, what other people think of you. The ego builds its entire identity on these things, which are all by nature temporary.
And this is the key. This is why that fear is so incredibly powerful, because the ego identifies completely with these temporary forms. When those forms are threatened with dissolution, well, to the ego, that feels like total annihilation. It feels like the absolute end of everything.
So what do we do about this? How do we start to loosen the ego's terrified grip? Well, the answer isn't to just brace for the big one. The answer lies in a daily practice and learning how to embrace all the little endings that happen in our lives every single day.
This is where we kind of flip the script on our everyday experience. Think about it. Every time something ends, a great vacation, a project you poured your heart into, a fun dinner with friends, even just a loved one leaving the house for the day, that is a small death. It's the dissolution of a form that just existed in your world. Now, instead of immediately resisting that little pang of sadness or emptiness, we can practice something new. First, just acknowledge it. Okay, that's over. Second, turn towards that feeling of emptiness and just let it be there. Don't judge it, don't try to fill it, and if you do that, you might just discover something totally unexpected, a sense of inner spaciousness, a really deep and profound peace hiding right inside that emptiness. And practicing this, embracing those little endings, it actually prepares us for the most profound realization of all. It gets us ready to identify the part of you that isn't subject to birth and death in the first place. Let's try a little thought experiment. Imagine if everything in the entire universe was the color blue. I mean everything. There would be no such thing as blue, right? Because you need something that isn't blue to even recognize what blue is. Well, the same logic applies to our own existence. To know that things in your life are temporary, there must be something inside you that is not temporary. Think about it. Your body ages, goes from young to old. But what is it that knows this has happened? Your thoughts, your beliefs, they shift and change over a lifetime.
But what is the constant witness to all those changes? That is the unchanging part of you.
That unchanging witness, that quiet background awareness, that is your true essence. It's that deep sense of I am that exists before you add any story to it. It has no form, it's timeless, and it can never, ever be lost, because it isn't something you have, it's what you are.
And this brings us to the final and most liberating piece of the puzzle, understanding what it really means to die before you die and to find true freedom in that process.
You know, have you ever noticed this? Sometimes people who are very old or very ill, as they get closer to the end of their lives, they almost seem to become transparent, radiant. It's like a kind of light is shining through them as their physical form starts to fade.
What we're actually witnessing in those moments is total liberation. These people have let go of their identification with the ego, with their body, with their story, before the body itself finally dissolves. They have died before they died, and in doing so, they found that deep inner peace, because they've realized their own immortal nature. So I want to leave you with this one question to really sit with. When all the temporary forms fall away, the body, the name, the life story, all of it, what is it that remains? The answer to that question, that's the key to moving beyond fear and discovering a peace that truly has no end.